Be good. Be very good.
Hey guys, it's me, Yaya Diamond. What's up, peoples? How you doing? It is a great day. I'm so excited to be here, and I have an amazing guest on the show. Hey, how is your driving? If you're in Florida, it's really bad. I'm not gonna lie to you. If you're in Jersey, hey, I went to Jersey. Their driving's horrible. But how is your driving? We're gonna have Mr. Steve on the show today, and I don't want to like torture his last name, so I'm gonna have him say his last name. Welcome, Steve, to the show. Thank you so much for having us in your life today. How do you pronounce your last name?
It pronounces Dziadik.
Oh, see, no, mm-mm,
You wouldn't have got it.
no, no. But I get it now. But thank you so much for being here today. You know what prompted you to, first of all, and I have to ask this before we get into the normal questions. What prompted you to write this book?
Well, I had a career I went in the Navy, and I spent time there, and then I got out and I went into commercial nuclear power generation field, and did my career there. And I got out, and my wife and I moved to Florida, and I went to work for an insurance company. I got my state license, and what was I going to say? I got my state license, and I spent about 7 years working for this insurance company, Allstate. I hope it's okay to mention their name.
That's fine.
Okay. In any case, one day, when you work for somebody, and then you notice things when they come on TV, your ears kind of pop a little bit when you realize that it's the same company that you work for. So I was paying particularly close attention to this commercial that they had. It was about 45 seconds long, and the 45 seconds showed a family. There were 4 people in the living room, and clearly it was a mother and father, and then it was two teenagers. And those 2 teenagers looked like they were getting ready to go to the prom. So they look like everybody's happy. Mom's taking all kinds of pictures, this, that, and the other. And they go out onto the front porch, and you can see the teenagers go walking down towards the car, and they get in the car and they start to pull out of the driveway. And then across the screen passes this banner, and the banner said, every year 6,000 teenagers get in their cars, and they go away and they don't come home. And I was like, that's terrible.
It is terrible.
So I wondered to myself, where did they get that information from? Did they just make? I mean, it's a high number. I knew it, but I didn't realize it was that high. So what I did is I did a little investigation, and I came up with an understanding of Allstate had instructed U.S. News to do this 10-year study. And I don't know if it was 1995 to 2005, but anyway, it was a 10-year study. And during that 10 years, they recorded 60,600 teenagers, fatalities. And that's where the 6,000 per year came from. Now, what I wondered when I saw that number was how many people didn't make the list? How many people are in wheelchairs or are quadriplegics in beds, and their lives are ruined forever? And then I thought to myself, how could I possibly relate to them in a way that, people that are not disabled don't think they'll ever become disabled. And so I thought, how can I get to them? And I talked with a friend of mine, and we decided that the only way to get to them would be something that they could read and read again and again. So I started writing a book. Never written one before, but I started writing a book, and it took me a long time, but I got it. You're looking at a serious numbers of revisions at this point right now.
Wow.
But that's why I did it. And it's my hope and sincere wish that somebody's life is saved as a result of this.
Definitely. And, okay, so the 10-year study was just for teenage drivers?
That's right.
Wow.
That's the average number of people that die in the United States on average for the last 60 years is in the order of about 42,000 people every single year. It's disgusting.
That is crazy.
It just it boggles my mind because I can't understand why we can tolerate deaths like that, and yet if an airplane goes down, all kinds of federal agencies are involved to figure out why, so it don't happen again.
Yeah.
Something wrong with. I guess it's to the point now where I guess it's okay to die by car accident, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
And especially I'll explain to you a couple of things that happened in my life, which make me very have a high desire to want to make sure that people don't get involved in crashes.
Okay, so in this book you have 10 principles to driver safety awareness. What are those 10 principles?
Okay, let me just go through each one of them. I actually, when I was writing the book, I wound up repeating myself a lot on particular instances. So what I did is I created something called these theorems. And what they wound up being was something I could that's written in the front of the book, and that people could go back and refer back to as they're reading through the various pages. The first one says that it's necessary to understand that no one wants to be a bad driver on purpose.
Right.
And I believe that with all my heart, except if there's a terrorist or something like that. The second one says to understand that the first person that you need to be concerned about safety is yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you're not being safe for yourself, then who can do that? The third principle is to understand that going from point A to point B in a car has to be done safely, and it's got to be done on purpose. Then to understand that what's obvious to me is not obvious to you. And I'll give you an example of what comes to my mind real quick when I say that. Think of a glass being half full.
Right.
Well, there are those who would say, well, it's half empty, and back and forth. So what's obvious to me is not so obvious to you. And that's the way it is when dealing with technical topics like driving.
Yeah.
Another one is to understand that my firsthand experiences don't benefit anybody other than me. I mean, I cannot relate to you my firsthand experience and have it have an impact on you like it does on me. Does that make sense?
It does. It definitely does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Understand that crash-free driving helps to promote to set me up more easily for a crash. Now that sounds kind of weird, but did you ever succeed at something for a really, really, really long time, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong? Well, something recently just happened in New Jersey. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, there was a airplane coming in for a landing, and a fire engine was dispatched across the active runway, and a collision took place between those two vehicles, and the pilots on the airplane were killed. I'm sure you've heard of this.
Yeah, I did hear about that, and thank goodness, because that was around the same time that I left Jersey.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
what a coincidence, huh?
Coincidence.
Well, one of the things that I thought of, and I'm not by any means the authoritative speaker on this, but one of the things that I thought of was I would bet that the fire truck had been issued the order to go across the active runways before and never had a problem.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me that as the fire truck was going across, one of the things that might made sense to do would be to look both ways before you cross.
Yeah.
But since they had always been successful, maybe that doesn't happen. So anyway, that's one thing. Understand driving significantly slower. This is a pet peeve of mine, but understand that driving significantly slower than traffic around me may be the reason for a traffic crash. I had a friend of mine that I used to carpool with, and he prided himself in going so much slower than regular traffic. And every time we got together, I'd ride, you'd see he's going so much slower, backing 10, 12 cars up behind him at a time. And I tried to just tell him, why are you doing this? He said, well, I'm driving slow, therefore I'm safe. I said, that's not necessarily true, because you got 10, 15 cars backed up behind you, somebody back there is going to be upset, and they're going to take chances they wouldn't otherwise take.
Exactly.
And so that can lead very easily to a traffic crash. And the person who was culpable in it goes driving down the road thinking they're a safe driver. Understand that, and this is going to get you a little bit, but understand that stopping properly for an orange light or yellow light or whatever you want to call it. I called it amber one time with some teenagers, and they went, "What? What's amber?" In any case, but stopping properly for an orange light may save me from a crash. And you wonder how does that happen? Well, if I stop like I'm supposed to, a red light and a yellow light have exactly the same requirements. They require you to stop behind the white line, behind the crosswalk, to give pedestrians the right of way. However, the yellow light has a caveat that says if you can't do it safely, then you're allowed to go through.
Right.
There are people who will see that yellow light, and what's the first thing they do? They
Speed
mash
up
on the gas pedal. There you go. They mash on the gas pedal, and it's absolutely amazing that that they would think that that's going to save them anything. So they hurry up and they get to their next traffic light, for instance, and they wind up in a crash. And they wouldn't have been there if they stopped for the light.
Yeah.
All right. Understand that discourteous behavior for drivers is nothing more than selfish thinking. If you're driving and you're doing it discourteously with other people on the road, it's basically what you're saying is I'm more important than you, and that's really just selfish thinking. There's no reason in the world why you can't be a courteous driver, but people get caught in traffic jams and they lose the ability to do that. And then finally, the last one is understand that if I see somebody doing something clearly wrong, that it's incumbent on me to feed that back to them. Obviously, it has to be possible. Like if I see somebody run a red light, I'm not going to race them, cut them down and say you shouldn't have done that. But one of the things that does come to mind is that, let's say I'm driving down the road and my driver takes out his phone and starts texting or driving.
Ooh.
And that is incumbent upon me and my own safety to try and feed that back immediately to him. But those are the 10 basic principles that I came up with.
Nice. I like those. And what, I mean, who is this for? Like, who is the book written to address? I mean, I guess this is my guess, but what did you want this for?
Okay. And what I did is I wrote it for 3 different audiences. One audience is the parents of teen drivers. I was a teen driver at one point in my life. I was a parent of a teen driver, and I know what I was curious about and wanted to, make sure that I was getting to my children right. And then the third group of people is all other drivers. I had a guy tell me one time that he'd driven for 60 years, never had a crash. He says, I'm like one of the safest drivers on the road. And I thought to myself, you're just one crash away or one bad decision away from being in a terrible crash or maybe hurting somebody.
Yeah.
The National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration we're coming up to a section of the year that they call 100 Deadliest Days for Teenagers. And it's basically designated as being the time between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And that's about 100 days long, 3 months. And what it does is it points out the fact that during that 3-month period of a year, there's 30% higher probability that fatal crashes are going to happen with teenagers. That's a really high number when you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
And part of the reason for that is distractions. Distractions by maybe within the same car or talking on a cell phone or whatever increases the probability that they're going to be in a crash by 60%. Not having seatbelts buckled, which is something that today there's no excuse for. I mean, you got all kinds of reminders and everything, but people still drive around without seatbelts.
Oh, yeah.
But it increases it for teenagers by about 50%. And then speeding increases their probability by 30%. And when you put more than 3 teens in a car, the increased probability is 158% higher probability they're going to be a fatal crash.
Oh, man.
Those are disgusting numbers, aren't they?
Oh, oh yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I know. But and this is one thing I think is really important for parents to understand, that they need to have that in mind when they go into the summertime. And it's not just a good time where they don't have to get up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got to educate their children.
Oh, yeah.
And having this book would educate them.
Oh, definitely. I see that you have a trailer for your book. We're going to go ahead and play that. I know we said earlier we're going to, but I figured out a way to play it. So we're going to go ahead and play that. And then we will be right back, guys. Watch this trailer. This could save your child's life and yours.
Every day, there are many people who drive on the streets to go to their respective jobs. But how many were able to return to their homes safely? Many individuals are overly concerned with getting to their destinations, overlooking the importance of making travel safe and practiced. How's My Driving? Why Every Other Driver Doesn't Seem to Have a Clue, one of the best self-help books, is about encouraging the readers to learn more about defensive awareness by Dziadik. It consists of the author's advice, tips, and lessons about defensive driving.
I wrote the book How's My Driving? Why Every Other Driver Doesn't Seem to Have a Clue to encourage an increase in the level of defensive driving awareness among the audience. Doing this should help the driver become much more alert to traffic conditions around them as they operate their vehicles. The increased number of teenage fatalities in car accidents urged me to write this book. It breaks my heart to know the feelings of the families of those who weren't able to go home due to the accident.
Steve mentioned that for the first 3 months you start to drive a car, don't drive with your peers or with somebody else, as it will distract you, which may lead to a horrible accident. He also stated that over 60,000 individuals died because of vehicle accidents, citing 10-year-old research. Among the goals of self-help books is to allow the reader to gain lessons that will help them develop themselves. The most basic goal of this nonfiction book is to remind people that they already know about driving safely but may have just temporarily forgotten or haven't practiced for a long time.
Wow. 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 You know, goodness gracious. So, what is a defense driving recipe? What is that?
Defensive driving recipe. It's a 5-step approach to driving with the highest possible level of awareness in your driving regimen.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive driving recipe, it has 6 parts to it altogether, and 5 of them are very active. And they're things that you do, and the 6th one makes your defensive driving regimen happen on a continuous basis to the best possible ability.
Mm.
The first one it stands for SIPDER, and S stands for search. So when you're driving along, and this works, by the way, when you're walking around your house. If you've ever run into a coffee table,
With my
then you know
toe.
it. So search and get an idea what your surroundings are.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done that, then you identify in the picture that you just made in your brain, identify those things that could be a problem to you or you to them. Then the hardest one of the whole bunch, and this is especially difficult for teenagers, is you predict based on what you see, what you think these things are going to do. For instance, if I see a bicyclist on the road, what do I do to deal with that bicyclist? Well, I have to predict what they're going to do. If they're riding along the sidewalk, then I have to make sure I'm convinced that they're going to continue to do that. Or if they're going to cut out in front of me, I have to be ready for it. Because the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what I'm going to do to keep them safe and me safe.
Right.
And then when I once I've done that, then I'm going to execute the plan that I came up with. And then the last thing that I do is I'm going to repeat the process. And you'll notice that at no point in there does it mention use of cell phones or eating or any of those actions. So it's search, identify, predict, decide, execute, repeat. Search, identify, predict, decide, execute, repeat.
Yeah. Wow.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I wish.
It's something.
Yeah, it's super simple. I mean, super simple. I hope that, people consider getting the book because, it does come up with a lot of points that we need to adhere to and really repeat, even ourselves, even not even just teenagers, but people like, you've driven in Florida. Come on.
Yep.
You
It's
driven.
not just Florida.
Oh gosh, it's not just Florida. I know it's Jersey too. It's New York. New York is bad. I'd rather be on public
California.
transportation than than in my own car in New York. But how should the reader consider the use of safety devices on the average car?
Well, there's several safety devices that exist on cars, and the first and most important one, in my opinion, is turn signals. Even though they wouldn't be necessarily classified as a safety device, how do you? Let's say that you're in another car and I'm driving along, and I'm getting ready to do a turn, but I don't use my turn signal. How am I supposed to know that as the other car driver? So the turn signals are very important to alert people that I'm going to deviate from my course of action at that point. Anti-lock brakes are something that come pretty standard on cars now. They didn't always, but they're there to keep you from having an uncontrollable skid because it doesn't let you lock your wheels up and melt rubber off the bottom of the tires. They also help out in bad weather conditions. For instance, if the road is wet and if there's sand on the road, which is something you might not even see. The airbags, another thing that is a safety device on the car, and it's not something that you're going to have to initiate it because it'll initiate by itself. But people don't understand just how quickly airbags go off. They literally go from inside your steering wheel to fully inflated and starting to deflate in less than 1/100th of a second.
Oof.
It's mind-numbing how fast that is. But it has to be that way because if you have a head-on collision, the front of the car is starting to stop. During that time, that airbag has to experience an initiation signal, and then it has to fire a device in there that produces nitrogen gas at high pressure, and then it explodes that airbag out in front of you, and the airbag has to be deflating by the time you get to it. Now, that if you think about that, because if it wasn't deflating by the time you got to it, you may as well hit your dashboard.
Yeah.
Because it'd be that hard.
Yeah.
So they're there, and one of the things about airbags, obviously, that you really have to be concerned about is passengers. People should be appropriately positioned in cars so that they, like children, for instance.
Yeah.
They can fall if the airbags ever go off in 1/100th of a second. You're not going to do anything.
No, you can't put your arm out to try and stop them.
Nope.
It's
Nope.
not going to work.
Another thing that I consider to be safety devices on a car, which most people wouldn't consider, is your warning lights. And this just had a phone call from my granddaughter, literally less than 2 hours ago, and she had her oil changed in her car, and all of a sudden her engine blew up. And I said, "What happened?" She says, "I don't know, but I maybe didn't get it changed as frequently as I should have." I said, "Did you happen to notice any lights come on your dashboard when that happened?" And she said, "No, I didn't." I said, "Well, there probably was a light that would have warned you of that." Also, audio signals. if you don't have your seatbelt buckled, it'll beep at you.
Yeah.
So those are all safety devices on a car that you can use to drive more safely.
Yeah, definitely. And you have these automated cars now that won't even like take off unless you have your seatbelt on.
That's true.
It won't even go
You-
anywhere.
Yep, and that's honestly that's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. There's one thing that I want to say, and I have time for one more question. How far should someone kind of drive or maintain their distance between the car in front of them and them? Because that is a big thing. I do not like when people tailgate my car or they're right on top of me. Because if I stop, that's it. They're going to be in my trunk. They're going to be in the back seat of my car somewhere. And we're going to have an accident. I just know it. So usually what I do is when people do that, I pull off to the side of the road and I say, go ahead, just go, just go, because I can't.
Perfect. Well, that's perfect. That's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
How far should you be behind somebody? Well, that's the only thing. You don't have any control over what the person behind you is doing,
Right.
Unless you want to consider the fact that you're going to pull over and let them go by. But what you do have is the distance between the front of your car and the rear of the car in front of you, and that's a distance that should be approximately 2 to 3 seconds. Now, that's a distance in seconds. So how do you set it up? Here's the deal. Let's say you're driving down the road and you've got a car in front of you and there's some distance down the road and you want to know how far in time am I behind them? Because the average human reaction time is about 2 seconds. So I need to be at least 2 seconds or so behind cars when conditions are normal. So what I do is I set up a condition where the car in front of me doesn't seem to be pulling away from me, or I'm not getting closer to it. So therefore, I must be doing the same speed. And then what I do is once I got that condition set up, then I look at something on the road, typically one of the dashed lines, and I'll pick when their rear wheels go past a certain dashed line, I'll start counting in seconds, 1001, 1002, 1003, before I go over the same line that they went past. And that gives me 2 to 3 seconds of time to react to something happening. Does that answer your question?
It does, because I truly stay back. I think I do the 1 car length to 2 car lengths back, because to me that's a lot. Well, probably more than 1 car length. It depends, but I try not to be like so close to the person in front of me, and I like distance so that I have that reaction time. So, is that standard? Like, say 2 car lengths.
Okay, can I ask you what kind of a car you'd use for those car lengths?
A big one.
That's a loaded
A long car.
A long
Cadillac.
But you can't, in all honesty, you can't count in car lengths. But what you can do is you can count in the time it takes you to get from one point to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're giving yourself enough space to be able to say I've got at least 2 to 3 seconds under normal driving conditions. If it's raining out, I'm going to double that distance.
Oh yeah,
definitely. You know what? That's going to get me to my destination 2 seconds later.
Mm-hmm.
If I got a boss that holds me accountable for that, I'm going to change jobs.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is one of the questions that you're going to ask or not. But one of the things that caused me to write this book as well was the fact that I've been involved in 2 nearly life-ending car crashes in my life.
Oh wow.
Yeah, one of them happened with me and my wife, and she was 7 months pregnant.
Oh.
And the car crash that occurred was considered not to be my fault, but because I hit from the rear, you could say, well, I should have seen it. And the problem is I just didn't expect it. We were on an interstate at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was familiar with the roadway, and I had been on this particular section of road, and I knew the distance that I was just about to travel down was about 2 miles. And I saw a set of red lights go around the corner about 2 miles down the road. So I think what I did is I said, there's no cars between me and them. So I probably just started driving a little, maybe not as on top of my game as I should have. And what happened was there was a car parked in the middle of the interstate with a black car with no lights on, and I drove right into it.
Ooh.
My wife was 7 months pregnant. She lost a child.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it's she suffered. Well, unfortunately, she just passed away about 5 months ago. But
Oh.
she suffered from grief from the loss of that child because she never got a chance to meet it. And then about 9 years later, I was going to work late at night. We're carpooling. We're on this 40-mile-an-hour road, and we're driving along. And there was 3 guys in the car: me driving, guy in the passenger seat, and the guy in the back asleep. And he was kind of dozing off back there. But I was talking with a friend of mine, and he asked me a question, and I said, in any case, I said, I answered the question, and I looked at him when I did. Next thing I did is I woke up face down in the middle of the intersection, and it was a head-on collision. You don't walk away from them things very easily.
No.
But fortunately, both of those crashes gave me something to talk to students about that helped them understand. I had a driving school that I owned for about 11 years, and I used to relate both of those crashes to them and said, look, I didn't think it would ever happen to me, but it did. So don't think it won't happen to you. And that's the whole purpose of writing this book, is to avoid one car crash as opposed to, driving safely for the rest of your life.
Yeah, definitely. I have one question.
Okay.
Did you guys have children after that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We had a daughter at the time, and then we lost the one, and about 2 years later we had a son.
Okay.
So
it's still, I know it's still heartache. I know. I get it, but at least you had some children. You know what I mean? Wow. Wow, Steve. Wow. That's crazy.
Yep.
But I'm glad you're here to tell the story. I mean, twice. Wow.
Yeah, I know you think I would have got it right the first time.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, come
I know.
on.
I know. No, the thing of it is, that's what I always say, that success leads you to failure if you only acknowledge your successes.
Yeah.
And in that case, those were two failures. Unfortunately, it didn't cost me or my wife our lives. Yeah. She wasn't with me on the second one.
Wow. Well, Steve, I want to thank you so much for being on the show and for writing this book, and for still being here. The name of the book is How's My Driving? I'm going to put the link in the description so it'll be easy for you to find that, as well as the website. So we're going to go ahead and actually put the website there as well. And I want to go ahead and show it to you and put the link in the description for the website so you could check that out as well. And please share. I mean, you just never know. This might save someone's life here. And I mean, come on. Steve is still here to tell the story, so he's got to be here to save somebody. So I'm just saying.
It didn't. It was never for the grace of God go I.
That's right. That's right. Because you could have been face down and run over multiple times, but you weren't.
Yep.
And so, wow, that's an amazing miracle right there. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember to check this book out. Don't forget to dare to be different. And most of all, just stay safe and don't be tailgating. Okay. I don't like it. And I don't think anybody else likes it. Don't ride on people's tail. Be careful and teach your kids to drive good and read this book.
Amen.
All right, guys.
Amen.
No problem. Until next time, guys. Bye. Thank you for watching.